in the appropriate practice of Guru Yoga, there are certain determinations that one must make. And then after that, I will explain how this practice is used to bring about that moment. These are the determinations that must be made. You have to determine for yourself, for instance. There's a whole long list of ways to understand this, but Americans don't do well with grocery lists. We don't remember them. We get bored and we move on to something else, like did I leave the oatmeal boiling on the stove this morning? So let's look at it this way. Our experience with this person who is becoming our teacher, when we first meet with our teacher and grapple with the idea of practicing Guru Yoga, is not about some sort of emotional display of dropping to your knees and never having a normal thought in your head again. It's not like that. It's not some sort of funny, emotional, weird, dumb thing. Instead, it is a determination for oneself. What is this relationship? What does it provide? As opposed to what other relationships in my life actually provide. You look at the other relationships in your life and you can determine pretty easily. Some supply sorrow and difficulty. Some supply support and happiness. Some supply nurturing. Some supply financial help. Many different relationships supply as many different things as we have different relationships. And there are relationships where there is a back and forth, giving and receiving. But everything that is given or received, even affection, even human caring, arises from the world, arises from samsara. Oh, you think to yourself, well, love? I don't know about love. Love doesn't... Well, the kind of love you're talking about in ordinary human relationships absolutely arises from samsara, even the best parts of it. Because a lot of it has to do with chemistry. A lot of it has to do with karmic fitting together. We don't even understand how animal-like we are. A lot of it has to do with pheromones, how each other smells, hormones. I mean, all kinds of things that are absolutely worldly. And they come together to create a certain feeling. And a feeling is also something that is a worldly experience. But when we meet with our teachers, although our relationship with our teacher may initially and maybe always be cloaked or surrounded by experiences that are in relationship to or in accordance with our senses, and we will always see our teacher, I guess you could say that experience is worldly. You know, we will see in a physical way. We will have emotional experiences concerning our teacher. Lord knows you guys are into that. We will have reactions. We will have experiences. Our teacher may hand us something. That's physical. So absolutely we'll have physical elements. It's not going to be not relating to the five senses. We are sentient beings in samsara with five senses. But there's something different going on, isn't there? Isn't there something different going on here? The teacher provides for you a way to connect with our ultimate teacher, the Buddha. The teacher provides for you a way to connect with the Buddha, with Guru Rinpoche. In fact, with the entire lineage of lamas, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We are enabled through the relationship with our teacher to study through empowerment, wind or transmission or lung and commentary teaching that ripen and direct our minds so that we become familiar with the Buddha. Outwardly, that seems to be the physical manifestation, the Buddha, as we have heard about the Buddha in history. And inwardly, it is a gradual familiarity with our own nature that is Buddha. Our own nature. The teacher provides for us the path, the method. Not the method to go from one side of the room to the other, not the method to make, I don't know, lasagna, not the method to brew a cup of tea Not anything ordinary that you can learn in the world, but the method that is Dharma practice and the necessary understanding and deepening that goes with it. This method that is Dharma practice is not ordinary because it arises from the mind of the Buddha. Therefore, in relationship with the teacher, there is something happening here that is not of the world. It is extraordinary. You can't get it anywhere else. And particularly in relationship to one's own root guru, there is a particular food that occurs, a nourishment that occurs. The recognition that this teacher speaks my language. This teacher enables my recognition. This teacher matures and ripens my mind so that I can hear. Not just theoretically, I can hear. That's the particular relationship that happens between oneself and one's root guru. He, she speaks to me. I hear it. That inner recognition of that something. Plus, this teacher is the one who hooks us. This is very valuable and potent. Life will hook us. Anything will hook us. Alcohol will hook us. Sex will hook us. Food will hook us. TV will hook us. Star Trek will hook us. X-Files will hook us. Christmas will hook us. Love will hook us. Lots of stuff will hook us. But these are all things that can be found in the world. When the teacher hooks us, it is what is coming into play there is recognition of the nature as Buddha. The appearance of the path. This hook is about things that are not ordinary, things that are not of this world. And the result that the teacher offers, desires for you, tries to communicate to you as being important. What is that the result? What result is that? That you'll be a good cook? That you'll be pretty? That you'll be healthy? That you'll be, fit? That you'll be rich? That you'll be a good artist? That you'll learn how to use the computer? I wish all those things for you. I hope the bluebird of happiness nests in your armpit, never to leave again. I mean, really, the teacher wants you to have every temporary happiness, but that isn't what's happening here. What is happening here? The result that is desired, that is implemented by this relationship, is the result of recognition, of awakening. So once you determine, you have to look at this for yourself. You can't just listen to me and go, oh, okay, I see what she's saying. You have to do it in your head. It's your head. I can't be in your head. That's your head, at least for the time being. So while you're still thinking that way, think about this and contemplate it. Put it together for you so that you go, aha. I already went, aha. Now you have to go, aha. And if you're not getting aha, you have to do it some more. But once you determine that, all of the rules that you have, are you listening to this part? About ordinary relationships should not apply here anymore. Because you've determined this is something different. It's not in the ordinary category. It does not arise from the world. It does not bring the result of worldly gain, necessarily. It might. Virtuous activity always brings about better things. So who knows? But that's not the plan here, necessarily. I mean, like I said, every teacher, every bodhisattva wishes you to be happy. But the result that we are about together as student and teacher is that of recognition, of awakening. So once you determine that this is a different category, please don't be a dummy, going on like a beast of burden that simply cannot think things through and cannot change their habitual tendency is on a track. Engaging in this relationship within an ordinary context. Because it simply won't work and you won't receive the blessing. This relationship absolutely depends on two things. And it is relationship. You understand the word relationship. It looks like this. Connection between what appears to be two things. So the relationship requires on the part of the teacher the capability to express, display, and communicate Dharma. And certainly the intention of bodhicitta first and foremost, that the student's well-being and realization, recognition, awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is the goal of the relationship, the determination of the teacher that that is the case, and the teacher's connecting with the student in order to bring about that result. That is the teacher's responsibility. The teacher is also responsible for providing all of the necessary components on the path in order to achieve that result. But what is the student's responsibility? The student's responsibility is to not treat this relationship, once you have determined that not arise from ordinary, does not result in ordinary, and is not ordinary, that is to say, of the world, do not treat it as an ordinary thing. That would be as inappropriate as what a child does. You ever seen children make collages? They take a piece of construction paper and they glue pretty sparkly things on that piece of paper, and they make something pretty, and then they give it to mom or, you know, whatever. They just make play pretties. And that's their artistic endeavor because they can paste and glue. You don't think students do that with their teacher. They take, the equivalent would be like taking the Hope diamond or the most precious jewel, exquisitely precious, immeasurable in worldly terms, in terms of money, putting some Elmer's glue on it and sticking it on a piece of paper right next to all the fuzzy things and play pretties and sparklies and what have yous, colored macaronis and all the things that kids make collages out of, and saying, because I can paste and glue, because I can, I'm 6 years old now and I can do this. And that would be the equivalent of because you can, because you're 6 years old, because you can think, because you're smart, because you're human, because you're American. Taking that precious jewel and pasting it on that piece of paper and just throwing it around with the other stuff you made. Can you see what I'm saying here? This precious thing should not be dealt with in that way. It's absurd. You cringe when you think of a diamond that's worth so much money that it could probably feed all the homeless in our entire country for at least a period of time. Just to be used as a play pretty? Just pasted on construction paper with everything else? Colored macaronis and stuff? It's exactly the equivalent of practicing Guru Yoga in the way that we practice it. That precious relationship, we must practice recognizing. It starts there. That precious relationship provides a format in which that actually occurs. From the Buddhist perspective, when we are born in samsara, well, let me back up and say this. When we are born in samsara, we have a certain experience. As a human being, we are born of a mother. There's a father around somewhere in the world. If he's not right there, he's somewhere. There's got to be those two parts. There's a mother and a father. Mother, father, mother, father. Can't get away with that. So far that I know of, nobody's just like appeared somewhere. I mean, if you have, please tell me. I want to see where there's no belly button. I really want to see that. If you can show me no belly button, I'll be impressed. But so far as I can tell, everybody's done this. Father and mother, and then we have this ordinary experience. We pass through the birth canal, and we experience as infants, and then we grow into consciousness that seems to be this continuum that expresses itself as time. Why does that happen? Well, it's because we believe self-nature as being inherently real, and the self-nature is not the same as the Buddha nature. It has a certain kind of limitation, and the format seems to be that it moves through space. It takes place in space. To take place in space, you need to take place in time also. So we have this experience, and we take it for granted, and that's simply the way it is. But now, when the Buddha, in his meditation, remember the Buddha is able to look at you and see everything about you, what brought you to this present moment, every single condition that brought you to sitting in this chair and listening to these words. What kind of perception is that? Well, I think that when the Buddha, I don't think, this is how it is, when the Buddha looks at this experience, the Buddha sees in awareness, in the awakened state, in recognition, there is something else. There is the appearance of this nature in a display form, like the sun's rays come from the sun. Like harmonics are some part of the sounding of a tone. Any way you want to look at it, the Buddha understands this nature and does not distinguish between this and that, between empty and full, between high and low, between hot and cold, between solid and non-solid. The Buddha recognizes that face, that nature, that ground of being, simply in emanation form. Now, when we meet with our teacher, there is a different relationship there, and this is how we have to understand the necessity and power of Guru Yoga. That isn't about two non-recognizing beings with preconceived ideas and a certain repertoire or menu of delusions, running through those delusions habitually, which is what we do. You know, mom, dad get together, born, birth canal, you know, little, big. It's just that it happens like that. That isn't what's happening. In that relationship, the teacher, hopefully, if you've chosen your teacher right, is the bodhisattva with enough wisdom, enough awareness, enough accomplishment in meditation so that there is recognition. This teacher knows what's what. This teacher knows your nature. This teacher recognizes this potential, this nature, this seed, sees that. And the relationship is completely based on that. Whatever things, occasionally the teacher will interface with a student in such a way that appears ordinary, but it's always about bringing the relationship full circle until recognition occurs. That is the basis of the relationship. Don't make it ordinary. It's not about warm fuzzies. It's not about comfy cozy. It's not about feel good. It's not about do we both like to ice skate? Do we have the same color skin? Do we both have the same basic look to us? It's not about any of that. It's about the appearance and the recognition of that appearance. Now the student has an opportunity, after having determined that this is not ordinary, and that we should not use ordinary rules in order to see, in order to recognize, in order to be with this extraordinary thing. Now the student has an incredible opportunity, and that is to begin to practice to enter into a state of recognition, utilizing the Guru Yoga, utilizing the teacher. Why should we utilize the teacher rather than sit down and do Om and just meditate and see if we can kind of recognize our natural state? Well, because it's not likely to happen that way, that's why. We are ordinary sentient beings lost in samsara. We have been conceptualizing self-nature since time out of mind. We have unbelievably strong habitual tendencies. Like you think addiction is strong, you know, as it appears in the world now with drugs and alcohol. It's nothing compared to the level of addiction to habitual tendency that we have in our clinging to ego as being inherently real. It doesn't even come close. You alcoholics think you are so smart. But I have to tell you, anybody in this room has got you beat 1,000,000 times over. Now we are in this relationship where we are going to conceive of something different. Now we study and we practice in such a way. We determine what is ordinary and what is extraordinary. We go through this whole process. We've outlined it. We'll outline it again during the retreat. But we determine that this relationship is particular, is extraordinary. It arises from the Buddha nature. It results in the Buddha nature. In the middle is the path or the method. This is given to us. This is extraordinary. And so this being the case, we begin to understand that if it arises from the Buddha nature, and it is the Buddha nature, and that is our nature, that when we see the teacher, we have at last seen our own face. It is the beginning. It is that precious moment when that face that is our nature arises in some way that we can recognize. It's the beginning of recognition. Now it seems external. Seems like teachers out there. It is the student's responsibility to practice in such a way that we begin to recognize this appearance as the most precious, holy experience. Not like worshiping a statue or something. It's not like that. It's recognition of the nature. What is the nature? It is the Buddha nature. Indistinguishable from our own nature. Therefore, the recognition of our own true face. Gradually, over time, as when we first meet the teacher, there are practices and beautiful writings, and I myself have actually even written things about this and spoken things about this, but many teachers have. It's not my particular talent. But we talk about when you see your teacher for the first time, and even for the first time that day, in our hearts, without pride, with surrender, with beauty, with gentleness, with regard, without rigidity, without ideas, without taking that jewel and putting it on that collage, on that piece of paper. We behold the teacher and we say, this is my heart, my mind, my breath, all that is precious and holy to me, all that is beautiful in this world. And we place the teacher in our practice above the crown of our head. Are we stupid people worshiping something else? Are we kind of limp or weird? Are we maybe not American anymore? Try to understand. This is not about a personality cult. This is not about putting one being or body or personality above any other. It's not like that. This is about recognition. And the same pride, confusion, and preconceived idea that causes us to say, well, I just don't know. I mean, this person is just an ordinary person, and maybe I should just think about it. To just like be friendly and try to do some practice and some reading. That kind of holding oneself back from recognition is the same exact holding oneself back from recognition that is occurring right now to you and causes you to remain suffering in samsara. If you insist upon putting the teacher in the ordinary category, you insist upon putting the nature in an ordinary category. It's the same problem, the same habit, the same dis-ease. Guru Yoga then must be seen not as an end, but as a means to an end. You see? I mean, quite frankly, speaking for myself, and I'm sure most other teachers, we could care less. I've described this many times before. I just hate the whole prostration thing. It takes me forever to get through a room. I mean, everybody's prostrating. I'm trying to jump over it. Like if I have to go to the bathroom or something, it's really intense. I have to put on a blonde wig or something first so you won't recognize me. It's very inconvenient. I'm making jokes about something that's very profound. I mean, if one practices in a profound way, these prostrations are an opportunity, really, and that's why I allow them. That's why I allow them to be practiced here in the same way that they are practiced generally in our tradition. Otherwise I wouldn't, because I hate them. They bother me. But I allow them because it is an opportunity to make an offering and to move immediately, body, speech, and mind, into a posture of recognition. You are speaking the vows, I take refuge in the Lama, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. You are engaging in contact with your body. You are engaging in intention with your mind. With body, speech, and mind, you are connecting to recognition. And that's why I allow it. This relationship with one's teacher, then, is utilized as, what would you call it? Like the water of life, or some sort of ultimate nectar, ultimate elixir, ultimate empowerment that provides a way for us to begin to recognize that, in fact, that nature does appear in the world. That which is holy arises in the world. And I am that. Each one of us, we practice like that. I am that. And to the degree that we hold the teacher above the crown of our head and then take the teacher into our heart, without finding reasons not to. Because those reasons not to are the very reasons we are using to remain lost in samsara. Yes, we know you're clever enough to find reasons not to. We already know that by virtue of the fact that you are sitting here with your rump on your chair. We know that you can find reasons not to recognize the nature. So, okay, if you need to be clever the way Americans need to be clever in this day and age, you're already clever. Very good. Now let's move on, shall we? Let's see if you can learn recognition. The relationship with the teacher then becomes this precious opportunity, this precious bridge. We see that in the world has appeared the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the result. All in one as the Lama. And we see that this is not separate from us. So in the beginning, we begin practicing by contemplating the difference between what is ordinary, what is extraordinary. We begin to move into relationship with the teacher. We begin to practice devotion, try to practice some pure view, understanding that this is the appearance in the world and that this is holy, and we let it be that way. We simply let it be. And then gradually we move into a much deeper practice where we understand everything is the mandala of the Guru. Everything is the mandala of the Guru. And in that practice, we begin to learn turning adversity into bliss. And there are so many amazing ways that you can practice. I've seen it again and again and again in the greatest practitioners, but only the greatest. So we aspire to this. Things like, I think about stories I've heard about the Tibetan bodhisattvas, for instance, that in the Tibetan tragedy where Tibet fell and they had to move out, and stories about even my teachers where, literally 20,000 Tibetans tried to cross the Himalayas to get to India to safety, and only 20 arrived. Incredible amounts of death, killing, all kinds of things. Terrible, terrible sufferings that these people endured. And then you think about things that great lamas like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and our teachers also, my teachers, have said, instead of hating the Chinese that caused them so much loss and so much suffering, they feel almost worshipful, in a sense, recognizing that the Chinese are their gurus. Now, how does that happen? Do you think, oh boy, this is maybe more than I can swallow? If anybody's going to destroy me and my culture, I think I'd rather not like them. Thank you very much. But see, what has happened here is that these great bodhisattvas recognize that everything is the mandala of the guru. Everything is the display, the mandala of the guru with faith. Everything is that. And so when this event happens, it is understood as a wrathful display that gives us the opportunity to cut off ego clinging at the root. Now look, guys, it's like this. Whatever they decided to do with this information, Tibet fell. Those things happened. So you basically have two ways to go with this. You can use this as an excuse to fall deeper and deeper into samsara with hatred, prejudice, or you can use it as a ladder to climb out of samsara through practicing renunciation and the cessation of ego clinging. It's already happened. Those are the only two choices you have. And if we were to break a leg now, if we were a good enough practitioner, we'd say, this is truly the display of the mandala of the guru. This is the guru's blessing. Because now I can't hop around the way I normally do. I have to sit my butt down and pray. You can use that opportunity. Or you can sit that same butt down in front of the TV and watch soap operas all day long and wail and gnash your teeth about it. And in my situation, I think like this. Many of you know I came from an alcoholic and abusive home. To me, that is my most precious gift, my most precious empowerment. I have received till date no more precious empowerment like that. It's not to say I want to do it over again. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. The days of suffering were endless. But I understand what I could not have understood any other way. That samsara is something to be reckoned with. That all sentient beings are suffering. That I wish to see suffering end. I don't think I could ever have understood this as well if I had not experienced what I experienced. So that has become my empowerment, and I feel that this is the Guru's blessing, and I have come, hopefully, to my practice to a point where I can say this without resentment. I feel that I can look to the face of my Guru and say, thank you for this skillful means that you have offered me, that I will benefit sentient beings. Thank you for this. Without resentment, I can truly say that. In the next breath, I'm also likely to say, please let's not do this again right away, if you don't mind. But the recognition is there. And so it has become for me an empowerment. The bottom line, the message of Guru Yoga, don't you see, really isn't about subservience or about losing power or losing strength. If anything, it's about recognizing that the ball is in your court. You do have the experiences of samsara. What are you going to do about that? Even if you lay down and die, you still have to go through the bardo and then you do it again. You're here. You were supposed to get that around the time that you were in your mid-20s. You are here. Remember that time you were somewhere in your mid-20s, you went, whoa, this is really happening. It's like when you first, that brain bud first developed, you know, and you began to develop a slight cauliflower shape to it. There's a little happening in the head. And it begins to emerge from the primordial ooze. And you go, whoa, I'm here, this is really happening. At that moment, you receive some kind of empowerment because you got to get it by this time. You are here, and that's where you are. So you have choices, but they're not the kind you'd like to have. You'd like to either choose to be here or not here, choose to be happy or be sad, you know, choose to have one experience or another happen to you. There's only some of them that you can choose, and what you can choose is what you do with it. And if you were to enter into the practice of Guru Yoga deeply and be truly empowered by that, this entire life should be, can be, empowerment. All of the whining and moping and gnashing our teeth that we do, these are precious things. And we can transform them into strength. Oftentimes in consultation, students will come to me and they'll say, well, I have this particular problem. It's my particular problem. So unique, my particular problem. You wish. And I have this particular problem and it makes me unusual and it makes me unfit and I just have this thing and so my mind is stuck on this. I have this particular problem. And so let's make a big deal about that so that we can talk about that together and then we don't have the practice. We can just have this particular problem. Well, my answer to that is mazel tov. Great, wonderful. Because if you have that particular problem, when you solve that problem, you're going to have that particular strength. That's what you're going to have. This is golden, this is gravy, this is... So we take this problem, we transform adversity into bliss. And the bliss occurs when we move into a state of recognition. We understand that we are not victims anymore. We understand that this kind of dualistic thinking is unreasonable and unwarranted and pointless. And we begin to understand, I am here, I am that. And the capacity to display this nature as something holy is also a gem, a jewel that I possess. We learn this within the context of Guru Yoga, through the friendship of our teacher, through recognizing what is not ordinary. But try to remember, if we insist on maintaining the same habitual tendencies and interact with that which is holy as though it were ordinary, and are not able to make that bridge or that transformation, it's like taking a precious, most precious in the world, in all worlds, that could buy you anything that you want, literally a wish-fulfilling jewel, and making, as a 6-year-old would make, a play pretty out of it, a collage, part of the picture in your head. It's not that one way of being would make you a bad person and the other not. It's that one is a terrible tragedy, a terrible waste, a terrible loss, and the other is empowerment. That's the difference. So as we hold in our minds the intention to awaken as the Buddha is awake. As we hold in our minds the information about the difference between what is ordinary and what is extraordinary. As we begin to move into a state of recognition. Through the practice of Guru Yoga, this will facilitate every happiness, every result of the path. And gradually, over time, we will prepare for the opportunity of recognition, and it will occur. And this is the truth. I would not lie to you. I have no reason to lie to you. These are the Buddhist teachings. And again, you have the opportunity to pit your ordinary process of conceptualization as it arises in samsara from samsaric tendencies and samsaric means against what the Buddha speaks, which is the truth of your own nature. And this the Buddha has taught. I will appear as your root teacher. This Guru Rinpoche has taught again. I will appear as your root teacher. And perhaps this will give you some beginning understanding as to how to move toward the practice of Guru Yoga.